you do to start off, and I'm going to rattle off a few things that just is off-putting with this team and these years that David Griffin has been the president of basketball operation. You go as far back as when Alvin Gentry was the coach, and Alvin Gentry brought up that when he first came into the culture, or brought up the culture around the team, David Griffin said that this is a family, that we're going to be together, we're going to go through this all together, and we're going to be great together with it. And Alvin Gentry said that he believed in that. He honestly believed in that when David Griffin came into the organization. And then as the struggle started to come, as they just traded their best player and Anthony Davis, he was heard saying to other members on the staff that Alvin Gentry has all the answers to the test and he's still failing. Why would you even let that stuff out about your own coach? You know, I know it's not the guy you handpicked. Granted, you see that with a lot of situations where the GM did not handpick the coach and they're just inheriting a coach, and then they wait respectfully and then get their own coach in there. But to openly, not openly, but to have it out there to other staffers that that's how you feel about your coach, that's not fair to the coach. And it led to, a bad relationship on that side. You brought up Eric Bledsoe and bringing in Halls. No, why did I say Halls? I can't remember the center's name right now.
Steven Adams?
Steven Adams. But yeah. But you bring up Steven Adams, two guys that he brought in and already are gone, right?
Yep.
And then not only that, there's reports that when they brought in, you know what? Actually, I'm gonna stop a little bit. I'm gonna let you get in on this as well, but I'm gonna carry on with this because I have a lot to say on this.
It's just exactly what you're saying. He left such a large paper trail that people can go back and just see how terrible of a job he's done. And I guess not to stray too far from this situation, but even of look what happened where Zion's talking about in media day. So I've heard other people say some other things. Did you get a chance to see when Zion was talking about like how he loves to play in New Orleans? Did you get a chance to see hit the video of him actually saying that?
No.
All right. So for anyone else who also didn't listen to it, I see some people online being like, this is actually probably, since Zion was drafted, this is probably the best thing he said about New Orleans. This is probably the biggest praise. But when I watched it, I wasn't convinced. When I watched it, he was like straight face. It kind of seemed like kind of scripted in the sense of like, he's just like, yeah, love playing in New Orleans. And I can't wait for this season. It's going to be a lot of fun and this and that. But then, the reason why I'm not convinced by that, because look at I'll probably go back to it a lot, but, look at the quote that happened from last year when Zion played in New York. They asked him afterwards about playing in New York, and he goes, glad you asked me that. Man, I love New York. Man, if I could play here, this would be the best thing ever. But, New Orleans my number one. But, you can tell he has so much, passion and energy in a situation like that. But then this one, he's just like, yeah, man, I love New Orleans. And then he goes straight into, he says that he had, him and David Griffin have a lot of disagreements, but they're getting along, sure. But when he's talking about we have some disagreements, he's literally talking about what you mentioned before about how they dealt with the injury in his rookie season. And then there's so many reports this offseason about how Zion would love for the Pelicans to try to re-sign Lonzo. And yet did not happen. Zion did not get to keep one of his best friends on the team. And Look at the trade. Look at the trade package they got for Lonzo there too. They could have easily got a better trade package in the trade deadline. They he's so the Thaddeus Young is probably one of the best players that the Bulls traded this offseason. Even though yeah, he plays the same position as Zion, but like still, like you don't even try to get a player like that and maybe flip him later. You don't try to get any of this other stuff, but instead you blow it. You blow it. Ah, terrible.
I, you know what? Like I agree. Like the thing is, it seems like he doesn't have the pulse of his team, and that's where the biggest issues is coming. Is coming from this situation. Disregard all of the trying to make personalities fit, making stuff work. If you just look at how he handles things, it just seems like he's like in a closed room where he's making decisions on his own and is not advising anyone. And you brought up the Lonzo thing. When you start to not listen to your star players, especially in this generation of the NBA, it's almost 3 4 years before Zion just decides to walk out the door
Yeah.
because you didn't give him a seat in the table, and star players feel that not only do they feel that they deserve it, they almost feel that they deserve it. They deserve that seat on the table to make decisions and be able to pick how this organization is going to go, because essentially they are the CEOs of the team,
Mm-hmm.
and when you give them and you bestow those keys on them, you got to give them a say now in what the league is, on how their team is going to play. A little bit back into the
Please, I love
David
it.
Griffin craziness of what I was trying to get at also is you take in account, you brought up JJ Redick. We've talked offline about how mishandled that
Oh yeah.
situation was, where he literally is a two-faced individual where he won't honor things that he's told players.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the situation of, like, they lose Alvin Gentry, right? They get rid of Alvin Gentry, and David Griffin looks at the landscape, he looks at the team, and he decides, you know what this team needs? We need a defensive presence. You know who we're gonna go get? We're going to go and get and his name's slipping my mind right now. Uh, um, he used to be the head coach of the Heat. I'm forgetting his name right now. Back in
Ooh.
'06 with Shaq and them. He was just a coach. I forget. I can't
Oh man,
remember
it's
his name.
slipping me too. I wish I could
Stan
help
Van
you.
Gundy. Stan Van
There you.
Gundy.
Oh
There we go.
yes, yes,
Stan Van
yes, yeah.
Gundy. So he brings in Stan Van Gundy because he believes that that's the right decision defensively wise. We're gonna bring a guy that's defensive minded as a coach to
Mm-hmm.
fix that. You want me to run by some of those numbers
Ooh,
defensively, what
please,
they look like?
please.
So first, granted, the points allowed per game, that's a stat that's really changed in the league,
Mm-hmm.
based off how teams play now, and we're so high tempo that a lot of teams are over north of 100 at this point. They were they allowed they're on the bottom half of points allowed per game, allowing 14.9 points per game, sitting at 24th. Their defensive rating for the season had them sitting at also the bottom half of the league at 23. Their offensive rating, which they thought that was their
Yeah,
their
right.
calling card for this team, is around 11. Not too bad, not too bad, close to cracking the top
Yeah.
10. But you look at net rating, they're on the bottom half of the league, you know? And there's more stats that speak to what were they doing? What was happening during that time? There was reports in that same article that spoke about David Griffin and his incompetence. They
Mm-hmm.
spoke about when they brought in Stan Van Gundy, and even him. it felt like things were falling on deaf ears with the players. They referenced a game where Eric Bledsoe acknowledged that he was not listening to Stan Van Gundy in a
Wow.
game versus the Pelicans and the Knicks where they were up by, I believe it was 2 points with about 7 seconds left. Stan Van Gundy said, "Foul them, foul them when they get the ball," and he did not listen to that.
Yeah.
And they wind up having Derrick Rose take it to the rim and score a layup at the end of that game and head into overtime and wind up beating the Pelicans.
Oh
It's
yeah.
stuff like that where you have to, as once again, heavy is the head that wears the crown. You as the GM, you as the president of the basketball operation, have to assess what this coach is going to, if this coach is going to be the type of voice that is going to resonate with the players on their team. And it wasn't the person. It wasn't even the right person for half of the season, you know? So you now scrap it. You brought in a new guy onto the team to be the head coach in Willie Green. I'm happy he's going to get his fresh chance at being coach in the league, but it's like, how many times can we restart before you have to look up top and say, hey, something has to change up here?
Yeah, it's as I mean, you can attest for this as a Nets fan too. Like, we know what it looks like when you have an incompetent front office. We know, and literally right now, what's happening with new head coaches all the time. Your star player wanting out or potentially wanting out, but like unhappiness, a lot of tension, all this drama. I mean, at the end of the day, this is New Orleans. Like, no one's really, for the most part, it's a good thing when no one's talking about New Orleans, but like, here we are talking about them. If we're talking about them and it's about drama, like, things are going wrong there, and it's really bad. And I'm excited to see what happens next for Zion in this terms of like, what's the next step? Because like you mentioned, they've been handling him pretty wrong. And like, if you look at the pictures of Zion on during media day, this man still looked pretty heavy. This man still looked. I was hoping like, all right, you see Zion, this man's gonna be fit. I mean, sure, he had his foot surgery, so I'm sure like that played a part and everything. But this man, I think he looked even bigger. Do you remember? Did you ever see the meme? I hope the listeners know about this. But it's a meme of like a guy that looked exactly like Zion, but he's a big guy in a suit, and he's like 50 years old.
Booger McFarland.
Yes, yeah.
He's one of the guys on ESPN.
Yes,
yes. NFL player, former
That
NFL player.
So it's like, that's always like Zion in like 20 years, but like, he's getting close. Like, his face shape is kind of like expanding.
And that's where the issue comes from, is like it goes right back into it, is that it's not one thing.
Yeah.
It's not one isolated thing. It's a trickle down of everything that's happening that has gotten to this point where almost it seems like, where can you redeem this and bring this back, right? You've already damaged the relationship with Zion's family. I'm of the belief that Zion injured his foot and did not notify the team. And that's why we're in the situation where they had to do a little damage control, cover it up, say, "Hey, we knew about this. We're getting on top of this."
Yeah.
And I know this is a basketball podcast, but you got to pull parallels from where you see it, right?
Yeah.
Me and Brian are also baseball fans, and we've seen incompetence in our baseball team, being the New York Mets, where we've seen similar things with players that went and did their own thing in the off season, and then the organization puts a barrage of ridiculousness to cover up what really happened, to to not disclose how this person truly got injured, and it just becomes a bigger issue than you just notifying that this person was injured. You waiting a couple months after a surgery to tell us that your star player got injured is the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous, because I think the reason why they didn't disclose it is because of the animosity that's growing between them and the front office. And because of that, I don't know where the Pelicans head with this. I don't know what they can do currently constructed to better their situation. And the issue is, for me at least, is I don't think that this team isn't a team that's redeemable. They still have good pieces on the
Yeah.
team to work with.
Yeah. I mean, just like the good pieces of especially Brandon Ingram. I really like the rookie they drafted, Trey Murphy the third. They still have Kyra Lewis. Like, they have a lot of really solid pieces. I think they just re-signed Josh Hart. Like, that's the thing. If you with a team with Zion, a healthy Zion, New Orleans should be a playoff team, or at least a play-in team. We'll see how where they end up this season. It's hard when you have a player like Zion and all these other players to be bad, but yet somehow we always see them. They're just not up to par.